The most disturbing videos on the internet today. Let's dive in.
Extraordinary footage tonight, captured and sent exclusively to us by a local resident in New Jersey, a hotspot for recent unexplained drone activity. This astonishing video shows what appears to be a massive green mothership drone hovering silently before releasing 9 smaller, glowing red drones or orbs into the night sky. These unidentified aerial vehicles then move in perfect formation, their purpose unknown. With reports of similar sightings coming in from around the globe, particularly near military sites, many are left asking, what are we dealing with here? A breakthrough in technology? Or something simply extraordinary footage tonight, captured
Just like on Independence Day when the mothership released all the smaller ships. Except those UAPs looked exactly the same size. Very strange.
Check this out. Smart LA. I didn't even know the Olympics was going to be in 2028 in Los Angeles. Let's go ahead and Google search it real quick. I said the 2028 Summer Olympics, officially the games of the 28th Olympiad, will take place in Los Angeles, California from July 14th to the 30th, 2028. The event will feature over 40 sports and 800 events with 15,000 athletes. Yap. All right, so yeah, bro. We gonna see, man. We gonna see about LA, man. How is they gonna rebuild, bro? So then I seen this post too. Shout out to Brother Truth, bro. That's crazy. If they end up building a stadium right there, that would be a really weird coincidence. Check this out.
We remember how crazy the last Olympics was. This one might be on a whole new level. Drop your thoughts below. If you're enjoying this type of content, please consider leaving a like and subscribe because we do this every single day, and I'd love to see you tomorrow.
The fire tornado. Right there, see that? Little fire tornado. That's amazing. Just spinning, it's creating its own weather in there, its own wind, and it will bring up the fire right off the ground like that in a spike. It's quite amazing to see, but a lot of ash coming out of that, a lot of fire being drawn straight up into the air. When we see this, it's just a spectacular sight, a very scary sight, but certainly, definitely due to the heavy brush in the area, we see it every once in a while, especially in one of the hot spots there. It's starting to calm down now, but quite a sight to see for sure on the fire line. Look at the size of it compared to the car.
Beautiful but deadly at the same time.
I have a book here that just goes into everything about San Francisco from the 1850s, and the great happened so that they could reset something and then take it over and then say it's theirs and everything else. But the more I've looked back into these books, the more I've seen that this has happened so many times in a row. I mean, even with the World Fairs situation, you know, when people are looking at the World Fairs and all these beautiful buildings, like a pyramid, for example, right there in Nashville, and then this building as well, which is Pier Stone. But all of this stuff has been reset multiple times. And I've started to realize that the more I would go back into the 1850s, it was like the people of the 1850s, like me and you right now, of let's say 2025 or whatever year it is, are seeing this and seeing it over and over again the same way they were seeing it. But they didn't even know that they were in this. So it's kind of like the more you get into this, unless awareness is created, which is happening, and I'm very thankful, like the internet just spreads things like crazy now. And now that, you know, allegedly there's no fact checkers and whatever, great things can happen to it.
History. It's almost like history is repeating itself. Are they trying to do another reset?
All right. Now, I want you to use your mind. This is a wooden school bus from the year 1919, okay? But 70 or 80 years before that, they had better modes of transportation. They built buildings like this all over. This is from Buffalo, New York. But it doesn't matter which city you look at. You're going to see a lot of the same stuff. Look how complicated these railways were. And look at these photos, drawings, these old buildings. This is the first photo of Buffalo, and it's in ruins. The first photo of Buffalo, and everything is destroyed. And look at it now. Everything is abandoned. Everything is in shambles, totally fallen apart, because no one is going to take care of it. And what's the reason? Because we didn't build it in the first place. Look up the Tartarian theory.
If you really look at those old buildings, the level of detail, something just doesn't add up with the technology they had back in the day. Those pilots have some serious skill to be able to pull that off. No wonder it was a row of boats just looking in amazement.
Unless you've figured out a way to harness an untapped force in the universe. Enter this lab and everything you know gets tossed out the window. Welcome to the world of John Hutchison, where the improbable may just become our reality. John Hutchison has been dabbling with electricity for decades, copying the work of famed scientist Nikola Tesla, whose AC power still runs our world. Along the way, messing about with military surplus gear, John may have stumbled across one of the most amazing scientific discoveries of our age. Experimenting with radio waves and electricity led John to discover an effect which has mystified government and military scientists. It boils, it bends, it sends objects flying through the air.
I was building these replications of Tesla's old machines and found them doing fascinating things. Then this whole thing happened, this fluke kind of thing, the Hutchison effect.
This was some effect. Air squeezed out of bottles, ice drinks moving through space, drill bits levitating. An effect so convincing and so varied, it seemed impossible to fake.
In John's labs, I've actually seen levitation of rock. I've seen levitation of steel ball bearings, glass, where they will levitate. Unbelievable. I've seen electricity go right into the objects and a million pieces just fly apart.
In fact, using only 75 watts of energy, enough for a small light bulb, Hutchison made a 60-pound cannonball rise off the table. It would also fuse dissimilar materials, heat metal but not burn the wood it sat on, shatter metal as well as change its crystalline structure. This was something to write home about.
That was pretty wicked to see how that metal came apart. It looked very distorted.
The old Penn Station, I mean, the scale of it is ridiculous. Like when you could see like the people inside there next to those columns, obviously the people with the horses and buggies did not build that place. There's just no way you're going to convince me of that. And before you guys comment, I want to play this one video, and this is the Pantheon in Rome.
This is one of the most magnificent structures to have ever been built. The Pantheon of ancient Rome, built in 125 AD. These columns we're seeing here were brought over from Egypt in one single piece. In 609 AD, it was converted into a church, but the most breathtaking part of this structure is walking right inside. Look at the sun shining through that little opening in the center. This is what's called the oculus. It's a perfect circle of light that streams in through the oculus, actually moves through the interior throughout the day, making it an ancient timekeeping device. And to this day, it is still one of the largest unreinforced concrete domes in the entire world.
Could these buildings be similar because they were built in the same time? When I first thought about that, it absolutely floored me. But the more I think about it, it makes sense. specifically when you walk in, those columns look very similar style. And then even when you get to the concrete dome, it looks like the same technology. Mm-hmm. It looks like the same kind of people did both structures. What do you guys think?
Those style of buildings, the multiple pillars at the front, like the triangle at the front as well, on top with like the gods embedded into it and so forth. In the northwest of England, we have those everywhere as well. This design, this style it's everywhere. It's all over Europe. It's actually quite boring to us now. We see it all the time, you know. But for America, that doesn't make any sense. Who had the time and the resources and the knowledge and the ability to build that in the time they're telling you they built that thing? And you're right, the architectural style is identical to the Roman style. It's the Parthenon. It's identical. You know, there's no difference whatsoever. And they'll say, "Oh, it's a Renaissance style." That's what we always hear, isn't it? You know, it's like,
exactly what I was thinking. They built it in a Renaissance style. Of course, that's what they did because why not? I mean, it looks so cool in ancient Rome, so let's just do that.
Those Roman structures could be seen all over the world.
The sheer size and scale of what this realm once was. We are but the ants now, living in the shadows of this giant forest. We are kept deliberately in the dark of our true history, the true science and makeup of this world. They want us thinking these are nothing more than random piles of rocks, while we spin on a random ball, hurtling into a space of nothingness. But evidence of a much grander life can be found all around you. You just have to open up your eyes and not blindly accept the narrative put to us without question. History is nothing more than a set of lies agreed upon, ones we never agreed to. Geology truly is hardened biology. Question everything, friends.
At one of the strangest patents in the entire U.S. patent system. Patent number 2006-001425A1, Walking Through Walls Training System. This patent refers to a unique process, a training system that enables a human being to acquire sufficient hyperspace energy in order to pull the body out of a dimension so that it may pass through solid objects. This is very real and was used by the U.S. Army at one point.
The biggest cymatic pattern ever made. The biggest cymatic pattern ever made is a temple. This is Borobudur. It is in Indonesia. I always thought this temple was super weird because it's perfectly geometric except for the circles in the middle of the temple. They're not quite perfect. The rest of the geometry, my last video, I showed you the simulation of the Chladni patterns. If you put sand on a plate and you play sound through it, it creates geometric shapes. But if you freeze the simulation right here, yep, it's perfect. They're not perfect circles because of the frequency. Each of the bells is a focal point for the frequency. That's why those circles are not perfect, except for the central one. Borobudur itself is a giant bell. There's nothing inside of it. The temple, you can't go in there. There's no chambers. Built on top of a mound. It should be quite obvious now that this is used to focus something. And here's how deep the Buddhist knowledge actually goes. This is called laser interferography. We shoot a laser of one frequency and split it into two frequencies and then bounce it off a mirror. And if we move those mirrors, the pattern the laser makes can be used to measure very small distances. When the waves sync up, they make a focal point, that red wave. When they're offset, it creates interference or a gap where the red line isn't there. When you measure that on a detector, it looks like this.
You can never find truth. All you can do is find false, drop it and get rid of it. And eventually, when you can't get rid of any more false, what you're left with is the truth. How much false can you find? And there's lots in history. I was looking around the internet and came across the images of the 1893 Chicago World Exposition. And it blew my mind because it looked like ancient Rome in the middle of downtown Chicago. And as I looked at it further, well, here's another one in Philadelphia. Here's another one in St. Louis, in Buffalo, in San Francisco. And then as soon as they were done, they tore them all down and threw them in the garbage. That just told me there's something wrong with all of these. The story of the expositions is a gigantic lie. And I think it's so huge of a lie because I think they're right at a bridge point when so many things about the 1800s that seem strange and weird, right as this sort of period ends of unbelievable strangeness, and all of a sudden these fairs spring up all over the world with impossible buildings we're talking about, which are colossal structures. Chicago built 700 acres of fair in supposedly less than 2 years. St. Louis built 1,200 acres of exposition buildings. One of the buildings at Chicago, the manufacturer's building, would house 300,000 people. There's a giant statue in the middle of the lagoon. It was called the Golden Lady, and it was known as the Statue of the Republic. It was 65 feet tall. They say it was covered in gold leaf that had copper underneath, but others speculate it was actually made out of solid gold. So you're talking 65-foot high, potentially solid gold statue. We're talking giant structures and looking like ancient Rome with towers and domes and columns and the most fine, ornate pieces to them in these record, unbelievable times. Then as soon as they're done, chuck them in the garbage. Like Jackson Park is a swamp. So supposedly they had to drive down tens of thousands of wooden stakes in order to support the weight of everything. They dug out massive lagoons, lakes. They had a canal system that ran through the entire exposition. They also had an above-ground electric train. An electric train. Well, where's the electricity coming from? That's running around the park. They had a moving walkway down by the shore. Not enough people are asking, where does this technology come from?
Just to frame it, if I'm not mistaken, the Chicago Fair was the first time people had seen electric light.
Tesla's the one who got the electricity contract for the Chicago Exposition, and it was certainly more than all of the lights anyway that were in New York City at the time were at the Chicago Exposition.
Yeah, it must have been mind-blowing for most of those people who had only seen gaslight or candlelight at night to see that city lit up in such a way. Again, count the way since 1901. We are told, whether it's true or not, the idea of being able to electrically do anything hasn't been around that long.
And this fair is bizarre. This is supposed to be Tesla's fair, where he managed to somehow move electricity from Niagara Falls to Buffalo for the fair. No one's really explained how he actually did that. And at the middle of the fair is a 395-foot high electrical tower, on top of which, of course, is a female golden statue called the Goddess of Light. That this thing was lit up by, some suggest, 500,000 electric light bulbs. Again, when you look at the photos of this thing, it's just, where do they really get the power from?
I mean, think of what it would take today if you had a place with no electricity and no way to pipe it in, the generators that would have to be built.
For example, there's a building that went up for the Barcelona Exposition in 1888. It was claimed to be the fastest built building in the world, 5,000 square meters, capacity for 2,000 guests, 600 rooms, 30 apartments, and it was supposed to be built in 53 days. This is supposed to be a time of horse and buggy. The 2-year building times are actually impossible unless the two most likely theories would be either A, they had a technology that they're not supposed to have, and it really was built in that time frame. Even if they built them, they had to build them out of marble and stone in record time, or the buildings were already there. They'd been there for hundreds or thousands of years, fixed up, refurbished, repainted, hence the term whitewashed, which is the term that was used for the Chicago Exposition, which was paint all the buildings with this brand new spray paint that they had just developed to spray paint all the buildings in record time, so you couldn't tell if anything was old or anything was new.
How long did these things tend to stay open? When they built these things, supposedly over 2 years, which is the narrative, how long were they there for?
6 months.
6 months for the public to come.
And then what was amazing, for example, in St. Louis, 2 days after the fair ended, they brought in a demolition team from Chicago with explosives and blew the thing up. They actually used dynamite to blow it up, and they say threw it in landfills. Things like the World Fairs shows there was a time in our past, and even not that far in our past, where humans seemed to be at a completely higher level. Human living and human knowledge were constructed into the buildings using cymatics, using sacred geometry. These fairs, they're so important to study because the history that we know right now as history was invented at the time these fairs were going on. One of their underlying nefarious purposes was to teach a historical narrative to the population that they were supposed to believe and agree with. And scarily, the world we're walking into today is in some way, has its origins during the time of these fairs.
All I'm offering is the truth, nothing more.
The golden statue you could still see in Chicago. The next World Fair is coming up.
Cross na kahoy. Sinukuan. Sinukuan ang tawagan natin. Ay, grabe. Oh, diba? May cross.
Yung ano to siya tawag dito, yung mga kapatid ko bibigyan ko para swertein sila sa buhay.
Na may cross na kahoy. Sinukuan.
Watch this UFO absolutely decimate this rocket looks to be like.
If you look at the UFO carefully, it looked like it had some type of wheels around it gyrating.
Call me dumb, yeah, but I don't understand how this works. So this is below, and there's buildings and houses, then there's a bridge. And on this bridge, there's buildings and houses on top. So are the buildings built on the bridge?
The mud flood, many say, was a deliberate attempt to wipe out Tartaria from history, hiding their advanced technology and knowledge. During the early 19th century, strange events were reported worldwide. Cities were being dug out from layers of mud and debris. Buildings were being revealed that were covered to their rooftops in mud. A global cataclysmic event buried entire civilizations, erasing them from history. But here is where it gets rather unsettling. The Tartarian Empire, an empire often depicted in old maps, was an advanced civilization that existed across Europe and Asia. They built architectural marvels, had access to advanced technology, and were able to harness energy from the atmos.
Who were the Tartarians? The official history is hiding a major world power which existed as late as the 19th century. Tartary was a country with its own flag, its own government, and its own place on the map. Its territory covered most of the modern world we know today, yet somehow it was ever so quietly incorporated into Russia and some other countries.
Call me dumb, yeah, but I don't understand how this works. So this is below, and there's buildings.
I'm not too sure the location where that bridge was, but it was absolutely beautiful. What an odd creature. It had to be some sort of whale. Tell me what you think.
This is the Cincinnati, Ohio you've never seen before. Like this marvelous Cincinnati hospital that only took 2 years to build. Would have been done sooner, but they built it on an incline, they say. Most of this great city, much like many of the others at the time, burned down in a convenient Great Fire. This one in 1881 started in a toy factory. Yet they tell us that the scenes from this old world city is from a population of just 250,000. And to not let the Great Fire have all the glory, the city of Cincinnati has been working tirelessly to continue bulldozing any past traces of this beautiful city. At least in the grand glory it was. Even entire villages, like the village of Bethlehem in Cincinnati, was completely buried. His story is nothing more than a set of lies agreed upon.
These structures are absolutely stunning. I wish they were still around for us to see.
This man found a mysterious cave that leads to the bathrooms at Disneyland.
Secret cave that goes into Disneyland. Now, if this works and it actually does go into Disneyland, I have an annual pass, so I'm not trying to steal admission. Here goes. It's kind of short.
Ask yourself, why would there be a cave leading to the bathroom? What is it really used for? That's not weird at all.
I did make it. I made it. I made it, I made it, I made it. I am in Disneyland.
Stay weird, y'all.
It works.
Thanks for watching.
The cave is real.
What type of diddler activities is going on here?
Ukraine.
Gilles nu se schimba
Ho trovato che c'è speciale. C'è speciale.
I want to say those were drones, but there was no splash. That is the weird part. The fact that everyone had their phones out is always a good indicator that there's something good's about to show. 2025 definitely has us all looking up a lot more, if you ask me.
God, if you could hear me, I just want to live here in this cave. Yep, custom cave. Got my Rolls Royce, my car, my McLaren in the back playing GTA. Got my little sound system on. I just want to thank you, God. Appreciate you.
Definitely a cool idea, a legitimate bat cave. I feel like it would be difficult for a pilot to take out his phone for a little bit to capture something like that, which makes me want to believe it even more.
History that we are given. The history that is nothing more than a set of lies agreed upon. Set of lies they agreed upon. Question everything, friends. Until next time.
These things had to be absolute giants. To be that tall next to the obelisk.
What would you hide in something so small? This gold ring from the 1800s opens up to reveal a very small hidden compartment. But what could you actually fit inside? In the old days, it was locks of hair, love notes, and sometimes even poison. Personally, if you're a salt fiend like me, you'd probably want a pinch of salt for emergency seasoning. I'm open to suggestions though, so let me know in the comments what else you could stash inside.
I mean, the ring is called a poison ring. Some pink Himalayan salt wouldn't be too bad, I guess.
Y'all were saying that the bread is not molding, and although this bread looks so soft and fresh, I bought this stuff months ago. It was in this cabinet right here, and I just remembered it. And when I looked at the expiration date, October 2nd, 2024, come on. No mold, y'all. Not only that, it doesn't have a smell, and it's not even stale. It's in perfect condition. Who finna eat this? Not me. And let me tell you something else. This is not all bread, because I also buy Wonder Bread. Wonder Bread usually don't last more than a week before it starts to change and the smell changes or it gets stale. But this Sara Lee bread is not molding. Sara Lee, we need answers.
Yeah, it's that time we start making our own bread. Drop in the comments below if you make your own bread and have some great recipes. If you made it this far, please consider leaving a like and subscribe, because I do this every single day and I'd love to see you tomorrow. This was the most disturbing videos on the internet today.